Great. So how do you ideate? The first step to ideation is be passionate about starting a business. You might not be passionate about a specific business idea, but be passionate about the entrepreneurial process. Why that's very important is because it's going to keep you going during the tough times when things aren't pleasant. We say that there's 3 pillars to the emotional journey of starting a business. The first is passion. You've got to be passionate about running your own show. You've also got to have a purpose. So the second is what your business is. What are you trying to achieve? What's your goal? What's your purpose of starting this business? And the third is the payout. So eventually your business has got to pay out for you to be able to sustain it in the long term. So when it comes to carving your purpose, how do you decide what topic you're going to start your business in? Gather a group of your friends or the people that you want to start a business with. And yes, you do need people to start a business. As an investor, I can tell you that we do not look at any entrepreneurs that are going into the world of business on their own. There are just way too many risk factors to going solo into business. So always make sure that you have trusted business partners. Brainstorm a topic of interest, something that you have personal experience in, something that relates to your studies, your hobbies, your everyday life. Are you passionate about the environment? Do you care a lot about what you eat? Are you a cook? Do you make good food? Are you passionate about sports? Is there something within your education and the deployment of your education that you think you can improve? And you could have a whole spectrum of hobbies like carpentry or gardening. Do you have a pet that you really care about and can identify a specific gap in the services that are provided for your pet? Do you have any experiences with your younger siblings that you think could be improved with the use of technology? Have you witnessed anybody who is differently abled that technology could help, or a business could help, or a service could help? Do you have to run any chores or errands for your household that maybe could be made better by providing a service? Could you make maybe your transportation to different places easier by starting a business? Think about all of these things, jot them down. Just start off by, I would say, doing a laundry list of everything that you're interested in. That's a good place to start. And then once you have your list, think about which topic can you actually write 10 blog posts about? What topic do you know so much about that you can claim to be an expert in the topic? Do you have any gaps in the topic? That's not necessarily a bad thing. That's why you don't run businesses solo. And sometimes you also outsource some parts of your business. It's just about knowing and acknowledging your gaps and your areas of strength. When you're trying to identify your areas of strength, it's very important to think about, can you do this better than the customer? So when it comes to, for example, Get Baqala, the app where you buy your groceries, you can think, when this founder launched this app, they thought, I don't really want to go to the supermarket. I just want to sit on my computer, pick the things that I want instead of going from aisle to aisle, picking different groceries, and I want to have it delivered in a couple of hours. And the founder asked himself, can I do this better than the customer? Can I purchase groceries better than the customer? And the answer was yes. So he could provide the business. You could be providing a service that a client or a customer can do for themselves. And if you can't do it better than they can do it for themselves, and better can be defined very broadly. So I can do the service better, meaning I can deliver it in less time. I can do the service better, meaning you're not going to be exposed to health risks or the risk of contracting COVID while purchasing my product. It's more efficient. You can just search what you would like, and it would show you what is there in stock. Maybe the payment is more seamless. Maybe the options are more abundant, like Talabat, for example. I could go on the internet and look at every restaurant, every menu, make a call, place the order, but Talabat can do it better. And that is why they succeed. Think about what are the areas of efficiency improvement, for example, if your topic is school or education. What is an area of efficiency improvement in the delivery of your courses or in the access of information online or in the development of your reports? Think about that. Can you do it better than the customer? The second most important question after can you do it better than the customer is can you do it better than the competitor? Why is this so important? Because a lot of people, and this is something that we do so much here, is you see a business that's doing well and you want to enter the market, which is, I say, very aligned with the laws of economics. As long as there's returns, people will keep entering the market. But can you do it better than the competitor? Why should your customer choose you and not the competitor if you're delivering an identical product? One thing that we always tell our startups and our founders is you need to have at least one thing that you do better than the competitor. Sorry, let me rephrase. You need to at least have one thing that you do better than all of your competitors. Meaning if I created a matrix with all of the features and services that I provide, versus whether or not my competitors provide these, I need to have more ticks than everybody on that list. And I cannot lie. What that means is I cannot pick and choose what I'm including so that I have more ticks in the matrix. I actually need to have a value proposition. I actually need to do something better, provide an extra service. Maybe my prices are cheaper. Maybe that's my value proposition, but there is something that I'm doing better than the competition. Another thing that you need to consider when ideating your business is knowing and using your skill set. What are you good at? What do you excel at? What do you do really well? If you don't know, ask your peers, ask your professors, ask your mentors. What do they think you're really good at? And then cross-pollinate your interests and your skills. Once you've identified what you're really good at, think about what do you care about? What do you do in your free time? What are your interests? For example, we do have one of our portfolio companies is called Ideate. They're developing an application where when employees in a company move, their smartwatch will track their steps, and it would link it or calculate it or log it into the Ideate application. The number of steps then get turned into tokens, which are a form of currency. Then the app uses to allow you to purchase from a wellness marketplace. So you use these tokens as currency. You can buy a spa day, you can buy a ticket to a luxurious destination, whatever it is. You're competing with your colleague at work or at school to be able to get all of these rewards. And these guys have cross-pollinated their skills at gamification with their interest in wellness and in healthcare. So cross-pollinating can be a really good idea to come up with something really innovative. Another example, amazing example of cross-pollination is actually Innovation Cafe. I don't know if you guys have heard of it, and I'm not sure if it survived the current crisis, but Innovation Cafe is a cafe that serves health food, but is also a furniture shop. So there's many ways that you could cross-pollinate your interests and your skills. Also, we spoke about understanding your gaps or your areas of lack. And this is very important because once you've understood what your skill sets are and what you have experience in and what you can write 10 blog posts about, you also know where your shortcomings are. So for example, you're launching a piece of software and you have a software developer on the team, you have a business development person on the team, you have a business person that can sell your app, but your app also comes with a wearable, let's say a smartwatch or a wrist monitor or whatever it is, a piece of hardware, and you don't have a hardware expert on your team. Is that the end of the world? No. You either hire somebody, so you get another co-founder that can do this, that has these skills, or you outsource that task. The most important thing is you understand that that gap exists. Now, when it comes to ideation, I cannot emphasize enough the importance of researching your market. So many people don't do this before they start, and then they wonder why they failed. So if I would, you take away nothing from this lecture, except that you need to research your market and interview your customers, then that's all you need. And I'm going to go through these in very, very elaborate detail. What do I mean by research your market? I mean, understand how much money there is in the market that you're entering. What's your market size? There's so many industry reports out there. Google it. What's the size of the healthcare market? What's the size of the travel market? Is it being affected by current conditions? Is there an upward trend? Is there a downward trend? How much are your competitors selling for? What is their revenue? How much money are they making? Do you know how much money there is in the GCC for your industry? Do you know how much money there is in Bahrain for your industry? An amazing resource for data on all industries is data.gov.bh. You can find a lot of information on the Bahraini market on that website. So understand the size of your market. The first concept is your total addressable market. So for example, if I'm talking about e-commerce, I would say that the total industry size in MENA is $22 billion for e-commerce. But from those people, who can I actually service? I know how big the market is. Now I need to go a little narrower. I need to understand my total serviceable market. What is my total serviceable market? In the case of e-commerce, it's the people who can use means to pay for the services online. People who have credit cards. People who have internet connections. I need to dig deeper and understand how many of the 22 billion US dollar holders can actually access my service. And then I need to dig even deeper and figure out what my target market is. So let's assume that out of these people, there's about 200 million that are serviceable. Is it realistic for me to say that my market is 200 million? It isn't. You need to understand what your target market is. Even 1% of 200 million is a lot, but it's believable. It's believable that you will capture 1% of the market that you're targeting. If your market isn't large enough to make 1%, in some cases 5% market share, something that's significant and worth entering the market, then you're looking at the wrong market. If there isn't enough need that a small market share would create a sustainable company, then you're looking at the wrong market. Look elsewhere. Once you've looked at these numbers, you'll understand the demand, but you also need to go a little more grassroots. So you've done your research, you've looked at the McKinsey, the BCG reports, all of these. You understand how much revenue there is in your market. You understand how much your competitors are making. But when you look at your specific product, do you know who will buy it? Your specific service, do you know who will use it? Make a list. Understand how much competition you have. This is another thing. Do you have a lot of competition? Do you have a little competition? Is it direct competition? Is it not direct? And do not ever say you do not have competition. You always have competition. That is one thing that investors are allergic to, hearing that you do not have competition. If somebody tells me I do not have competition, I know they don't understand their market. am not willing to invest in them. What price do you think people will pay for your product or your service? Does that price justify the cost that you're going to expend? And then lastly, where is the industry frontier? So today I understand that, what does that mean? First of all, what is the industry frontier? The industry frontier is the latest that was ever developed in terms of innovation in the industry that you're in the area that you want to tackle. So for example, if I'm deploying a solution or developing a solution for warehouses that would allow me to track all of the inventory in my warehouses, and I'm using an RFID handheld scanner for things that enter or exit the warehouse. But then there's another company that's providing the solution cheaper than I do, and they've installed cameras that do everything automatically to an accuracy of 99%. I'm either counting on the ignorance of my client or customer that they don't know about this other solution, or I haven't done my homework. Understand where the frontier is in your specific industry. Another thing that I think a lot of people get hung up on is being innovative. Being innovative is amazing. Coming up with something new is great, and being different is good. But we always say being better is, well, it's better. You don't have to always come up with something revolutionary, but you have to do it better than whoever is currently executing this model. So for example, cotton. Cotton is one of the oldest and most traditional industries. This year, we've invested in a cotton company. Why? Because they were growing cotton in the lab. Much, much, much cheaper than growing it in the field, and using maybe 1/1,000 of the carbon emissions and environmental impact and water consumption of cotton that's grown in the field. I can produce it 5 times faster. Did they invent making cotton? No. But they've come up with a whole new way of producing cotton. So identify the right areas to reinvent. Make sure that you understand what people are doing so that you're able to deliver something better. When you're talking or when you're studying your competition, I think there's 4 important pillars to look at. We call these pillars the ERRC, or the 4-action framework. The 4-action framework enables you to eliminate things in the industry that are obsolete or have no use, to reduce things that maybe are excessive and not necessary, to raise the standard in things that have a lot of potential for growth, and then also create some things from scratch. I'll give you an example. When it comes to eliminate, you can eliminate upfront costs for purchasing a device. A lot of our portfolio startups are hardware startups. They have a smart device and they have an application with a subscription. One of the very common business models, most profitable business models, is eliminating upfront costs. I won't say, hey, I'm giving you this smart watch, and then you have to pay $5 subscription on the app. I'll say, hey, you can have the watch for free and you pay me $4.50 every month. It may take a year or 2 for me to make my money back, but by the 4th year, I've made a lot more money than asking someone to pay me upfront. Enrollment times as well can be really cumbersome. These are things you can eliminate. Reducing pricing complexity. A lot of people, when you come to purchase their product, they say, Well, if you do it that way, it will cost you this much. If you do it this other way, it will cost you this much. And people get very confused and they don't really want to purchase their product anymore because they don't understand how they're going to pay for it. Reducing price complexity is very important. Raise people's privacy settings, raise fraud prevention. And then you can create things from scratch. So creating apps, allowing people to interact with your product on their smartphones. And this is the second most important part of ideation that I spoke about before. So the first is understanding your market, and the second is validating your customers or interviewing your customers. Why is this so important? You would have no idea the number of startups that we've dealt with that have launched a product, developed everything, and then when we're doing our due diligence to see what should we select the startup or should we not select the startup, we realize that they've done no validation. You bring in an industry expert to help us with the due diligence and they say, I can't use this product in my industry. It's undeployable. Or this product actually clashes with the regulations. The regulations in my country or even global, let's say environmental regulations don't allow me to use this product. It's very, very important to interview your customers, no matter how small your product is. This is actually, I would say, the biggest precursor to failure. If you don't validate your products, if you don't interview your customers before you launch your product, you are very likely to fail. Because what you think the customer wants is one piece of data. That's data that's gathered from one person. You need at least 100 data points to be able to validate the desirability of your business. So how do you start? Create a persona. A persona is a description of a person that represents an entire market segment. So for example, you can say if you're selling a laundry service, an app that collects people's laundry, sends it to laundry service providers, and then delivers it back to them. Who is your persona? Your persona could be a 55-year-old man with a family of 7 who works full-time and goes through a lot of laundry for work and also has children that have school uniforms that need to be taken to the laundry on a regular basis. Your persona could be a 35-year-old woman with a newborn who needs her laundry done often. Your persona is somebody that represents a large market segment. You're just humanizing that market segment and trying to understand it better by distilling it into a persona. And then create an email list or a phone list of people that fit into that persona, people that you can interview. You need to do at least 100 of these before you launch any business for you to be able to know that you've done it properly. And then execute, practice, 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 practice. Now, one thing that's very, very important is do not pitch. This isn't a phase where you go to people and you propose your business solution, you ask them if they'll buy it. That's not how you do customer interviews properly. The way that you do customer interviews is you understand people's past and present behavior relevant to the business that you're launching. How do you do that? You write a list of questions. Let's go back to our laundry example. You could approach somebody and say, tell me a story about a time when you needed to wear something and it wasn't washed. And it might be a little awkward in the beginning. People might be like, yeah, just last week I was scrambling to wear an outfit and then I just wore something else. And then just dig deeper. What was the hardest thing about that incident? They could say, well, if I had thought about that interview or that meeting beforehand, maybe I could have taken my things to the laundry faster. Why was that hard for you? Well, because I didn't end up being as presentable as I wanted to be. Well, how did you solve it? I went the next day and I drove my things to the laundry, and I scheduled in my calendar to take things to the laundry at the same time every week. And you could tell them, why isn't your solution awesome? How would you change what you're doing? And they would say, well, it's not great because sometimes I forget and sometimes I have appointments or meetings or social obligations during the time that I'd scheduled to go to the laundry, so I forget. And then the same thing happens again. You hear this, you know that providing this app is something that they want. You're not asking them whether they would use your app. You're establishing that there is a need for using your app. Why is this so important? It's so important because nobody can predict the future. And I'm not saying this in an altruistic way. I'm saying this because I could have an interview with 100 people and ask each one, I have a product that does X, Y, Z for you, and that would cost you 2 BD a month. Would you pay for it? Maybe 70 out of these people would say yes. But can these 70 people predict that they will pay for it when it comes out, when they see it? If they have, let's say, the money to pay for it by then? If they have the same use for it by then? Getting 70 confirmations can actually really derail me because it might be telling me false information that once I launch my business, I'll realize was not true. Always, always, always ask about the past and the present because it gives you facts. So how do you use this information? Once you've done these interviews, how do you use the information? Sit on the feedback and validate it. What does that mean? It means that if the first person tells you information about their day-to-day life that means that they will not be using your product, should you give up and just do something else? Wait. That's why you do 100 of these. You're on your 10th interview. Still, nobody's needs mean that they will use your product. Let's do 5 more. If by now nobody is interested in your product and you've interviewed a diverse set of people, you need to pivot. And we're going to talk about that a little bit more later. Communicate your discoveries constantly to your team. Do a weekly what I learned from these interviews and how you can shape your product based on them. And now I'll talk a little bit about pivoting. What do you do when you realize maybe there isn't as big of a market need for my products as I thought? Don't be afraid to do a U-turn. Winston Churchill once said, to improve is to change. To be perfect is to change often. So what is pivoting? Pivoting means you understand the turns that you need to make in business. Some of the greatest products out there were originally a feature of a different product. And some of the greatest products out there were turned into a feature. So let me explain that a little more. Are you guys familiar with Pinterest? Yes, no, maybe. Sorry, I didn't hear that.
Some are familiar with the chat. We have a few. They say yes.
All right. So Pinterest is a website where you can pin things to your board. And Pinterest actually started as an e-commerce website. It was a website where people bought things, but there was also a back-end feature that allowed you to create a wish list and share it with your friends. And the creators of Pinterest realized that people were obsessing over their wish lists and sharing them with their friends and weren't actually buying anything. And they realized, wait, hold on, there's a huge need here to create those wish lists and categorize them and centralize them and allow people to share them with other people. And that's how Pinterest was born. Another example is Twitter. Twitter actually started as a podcast website. And then when iTunes took that niche, they brainstormed and thought, why don't we go into microblogging? Twitter was born. Instagram is the same. It was a feature in a product where you could take pictures of things and caption them and post them. And that feature was doing so well while the product wasn't. And that's how Instagram was born. What do I mean when I say turning a product into a feature? You could be doing your customer interviews and then realize that, yes, what you're trying to do is important, but it's one piece of a larger puzzle. For example, you're into waste management and you help people clean the recyclable bottles before they recycle them. And you realize, wait, hold on, actually, these people who recycle the bottles also need to shred them. So then your original idea becomes a feature. You clean the bottles, and then you shred them. Pivots can work both ways. You may start targeting new customers, new verticals, new markets. I'll give you an example from our portfolio companies. We have one company in Saudi, Thinkers. They provide a solution where they install cameras and some sensors in restaurants and in retail operations. And they can tell a restaurant or a retail operation when to trigger happy hour. When are they least busy? When should they post their discounts? They tell them how many repeat customers they have. They tell them their customer demographics. They tell them how many people pass by the store versus how many people enter the store. And then COVID-19 happened. And, well, a lot of people don't go to retail operations or to restaurants. So these guys were really smart and said, hey, we have the technology, we have the cameras, we have the sensors. What do we do with them? So they've introduced a new product where they post a screen by the door of the retail operation or the restaurant or the supermarket that will tell you when this place has reached capacity and it can't take any more people based on social distancing regulations. And most grocery stores in Saudi Arabia have started to implement this. So pivoting is important. Always think about, where can I go with this business? Skip Lino, Bahraini business, on global. You basically take a ticket in any place, usually government institutions. You take a number and you would wait in a virtual line, and when your turn is about to happen, you'd get a notification. So you'd go. So for example, at a hospital, they're subscribed to Skip Lino, you would take a number, and then when your number is going to be called soon, you'd get a notification, you would go. So you're not waiting. What happened with COVID is that they've introduced virtual queues. Now you can wait for your appointments, you can wait to do government transactions, all online. Sometimes pivoting means changing your manufacturer or changing your suppliers. Maybe you know that your target customers buy a product for a specific price that you can't afford to give them to. Maybe you need to find lower cost suppliers. Maybe you need to change the manufacturing technology. Maybe you need to adjust your business model. Maybe if you have an app, you need to have an ad-based revenue where you get revenue based on ads that you run in your app. Maybe other people are providing the same service for free, so you can't charge a customer for it. Always think about how to pivot if your customer interviews are telling you that you're not going in the right direction. Compose a dream team. This is so important. I can tell you as investors, this is the number one thing that we look at. your team? Does this team have the ability to execute? It's not even your product. You would be surprised as to how many products are so similar in the market. They see the same needs and they address them. But different teams have different abilities to execute and deliver these products. More teams have more resilience. A lot of these star teams, if you will, they start with a product and then they pivot and they have a different product. Because they're a team that's resilient. They're a team that have the factors for success. Having someone on your team who's failed in business can be a huge asset, a huge plus, because they know I can sit here and tell you for hours what could cause failure, but it won't really sink in unless you failed. And people who failed at business tend to have the best credentials to succeed. Talk to people or recruit people to your team that have client relationships, that have investor relationships, that can create your business development pipeline. Have a balanced team. Make sure that if you have technical people on your team that can create the product, that you also have business people that can sell it. And this isn't against any discipline, but we've seen so many people who are tech focused think that they can sell a product, and 90% of the time they cannot. Make sure you have a balanced team. Everybody adds to the business with their area of strength. Make sure your team is confident, they have positive energy. Make sure they have excellent communication skills. They can communicate with each other and with clients, with suppliers, with manufacturers. Also recruit a team that's flexible, that can problem solve, that can pivot, that can make decisions quickly, difficult decisions quickly. Decide on your business model. Is your business model going to be product-based or is it going to be service-based? Even if you're selling a product, you can actually sell a product on a service basis. Like I mentioned before, you could have a subscription to a software that goes with your product. You could have a subscription to using or a membership to using your product. Each has its pluses or pros and cons. You'd need a higher investment with product. It's also much easier to scale, but you need to keep inventory. Whereas with service-based products, it's a smaller investment, you have to keep inventory. It's also a bit more difficult to scale. Once you have all of these elements, they should really help you identify your passion, your area of expertise and interest and gaps, and then go in the direction that the market validates as a desirable direction. Once you figure that out, make a sketch. If it's an app, you can see here on the left, that could look like a sketch. Or on the right, if it was a product, but it could. So what happens next? Learn. Learn everything that you can about the product that you want to go into. Identify all of the stakeholders that you need to interact with and make some stuff. Whether it's an app, whether it's a product, toss it into the universe, see what happens.